Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we try to make sense of the money world so you don't have to. Today we are diving into a fascinating filing from Prospect Capital Corporation, and let me tell you, this one details a lot of their financial dealings. Before we dive in, if you love getting straight answers from these dense financial documents and want to understand what is really going on with companies, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We break down these reports so you don't have to. And hey, we have a fantastic community over on Discord. The link is in the description below, so come join the conversation. Alright, so what we have here is a filing called a Post-Effective Amendment number 121. Think of it like an update or a correction to a previous filing. Prospect Capital Corporation is essentially telling the Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, that they're updating their registration statement. And this filing is mainly for adding in some important documents called exhibits. It is like adding the final pages to a very big book of rules and information. This section is where the nitty-gritty really lives. It lists out all the details about the company's financial statements and the various agreements and documents that make up their business. First up, they talk about their financial statements. These are the reports that show how well the company is doing financially. They mention reports from independent accounting firms and consolidated statements of assets and liabilities, operations, changes in net assets and cash flows. These are all pretty standard things a company needs to report. They're basically showing their income, what they own, what they owe, and how money has moved in and out of the company over different periods, like from the 30th of June of last year to the 30th of June of the year before that. They also reference some specific financial statements for companies they have a stake in, like National Property REIT Corp and First Tower Finance Company LLC. Then we get to the exhibits. This is a huge list. Think of exhibits as the supporting documents for everything the company does. They have articles of amendment and restatement, which are like the company's official rulebook changes. They also have bylaws, which are internal rules for how the company is run. Now this is where it gets really detailed. We're looking at a massive list of supplemental indentures. To break it down simply, an indenture is like a contract for borrowing money, especially from the public through bonds or notes. Prospect Capital has issued a lot of these notes over the years, and each time they borrow more money or change the terms of that borrowing, they issue a supplemental indenture. We are talking hundreds of them. For example, they list a supplemental indenture dated back in March of 2013 for their 5.875% senior notes due 2023. That's a lot of debt from a long time ago. And it goes all the way up to things from November of 2025, like a supplemental indenture for a 6.250% Prospect Capital Internote due in 2028. This just shows how much they are borrowing and managing their debt. It demonstrates ongoing activity in their financing. They also have agreements for administration, which is basically how they manage the company's operations, and agreements for transfer agency services, which is who keeps track of who owns their stock. This table is important. It shows the fees the company has paid to file these documents with the SEC. We're looking at over $500,000 just for the registration fee alone. Then there are fees for listing on NASDAQ, and significant estimated amounts for accounting, legal, printing, and other expenses. The total estimated cost for these filings is over $2.7 million. That is a hefty price tag just to update their public documentation. It signals a lot of activity and a large operation. This section is fascinating because it shows us all the companies that Prospect Capital Corporation actually controls, meaning they own a significant part of them. When we look at this, it's not just one or two companies, it's a massive web of businesses. They own 100% of SB Forging Company. They own 75.9% of Spartan Through Tubing Services. And they own 60.7% of Airlift Leasing Limited and several other related aviation leasing companies. Then we see First Tower Finance Company LLC, where they own 80.1%. This list goes on and on, covering businesses in energy services, transportation, aviation, dental care, insurance, and real estate. It paints a picture of a very diversified investment company. They are not just focused on one type of business. We also see companies like Mitty Holdings, which seems to be involved in furniture manufacturing, judging by names like Mitty Light, Inc., and Nationwide Acceptance Holdings, which appears to be in the lending or financial services sector. Prospect Capital Corporation is essentially a holding company that invests in and manages a very wide array of businesses. Their control extends across many industries and many countries. It is a sprawling enterprise. This piece is quite simple. It tells us how many people or entities own Prospect Capital's common stock. As of the 8th of February 2023, there were about 168 record holders. This number is relatively small, which is typical for business development companies or BDCs. It means their stock isn't widely held by the general public in small lots. This section deals with how directors and officers are protected. Essentially, the company is saying it will indemnify or protect its directors and officers from certain lawsuits and liabilities as long as they act in good faith and do not engage in willful misconduct. This is pretty standard stuff in corporate governance to encourage people to serve in these roles without excessive fear of personal financial ruin from business decisions. This section refers to Prospect Capital Management LP, the investment advisor. It basically says that details about their business and other connections are found in their Form ADV filing, which is another document submitted to the SEC. It's incorporated by reference, meaning it's part of this document but filed separately. This simply lists where all the company's important financial records are kept. It's a mix of the company's own officers, its transfer agent, its custodians or banks, and the investment advisor. It's about transparency and ensuring records are accessible. This is a section of promises the company makes to the SEC. They promise to keep their registration statement updated, to remove unsold securities from registration when an offering ends, and to be responsible for communications made about their offerings. It is a way of ensuring ongoing compliance and investor protection. Finally, we have the signatures. This is where the top executives of Prospect Capital Corporation, like the Chief Executive Officer John F. Barry III and the Chief Financial Officer Kristen L. Van Dask, sign off confirming that the information in this filing is accurate to the best of their knowledge. It is a formal acknowledgement of the company's legal and financial disclosures. Now, let's zoom out and look at the big picture. Prospect Capital Corporation files these updates regularly, showing a company that is actively managing a large and diverse portfolio of businesses. The sheer number of supplemental indentures listed indicates a significant amount of debt financing, which is common for companies needing capital to grow or acquire assets. However, this also means they have substantial obligations to their lenders. The extensive list of controlled entities under item 28 is the most striking aspect. It reveals a complex structure with investments across a vast range of industries like energy, aviation, real estate, and financial services. This diversification can be a strength, spreading risk across different economic sectors. However, managing such a broad portfolio also presents significant challenges in expertise and oversight. The small number of common stockholders suggests that the company likely caters to institutional investors or a more concentrated group of sophisticated investors, rather than the general public directly trading shares on a retail level, looking at the overall filings and the sheer volume of debt agreements. Prospect Capital operates like a financial engine, constantly borrowing, investing, and managing its vast array of subsidiaries. The cost of filings alone shows their commitment to regulatory compliance. While the filings themselves are dense, they highlight a company deeply involved in financing and managing diverse business interests, always with an eye on meeting its financial obligations and reporting requirements. What are your thoughts on Prospect Capital Corporation's extensive portfolio and their debt strategy? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more corporate insights. And definitely check out our Discord community linked in the description for more in-depth discussions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.